Anne of Cleves had the greatest bloodline of all Henry's wives, apart from Catherine of Aragon. When I looked into her, I was really surprised to find just how many of the major European names she was connected to. So through various family trees, she's connected to Edward I in England, also Jean II and Louis XII of France. She's also a cousin to Claude, the wife of Francis I, King of France. And her father is connected with Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. So beyond anything we might link with Cromwell and reform later on, when we think of Anne of Cleves, she was a really great match. So she had that really excellent background and amazing family lineage. So let's think about who her parents were. Well, her father was Johann, or John, as we would anglicise it, John III. He was a Duke of Cleves and also of Mark. So these are areas that are in modern Germany. So he was the Duke there. So this was a duchy. He owned other areas, but I'll come to that in just a second. He was German, but he ruled in French, and he was quite a decent patron. He patronised musicians at court. He was interested in reform, but he was more interested in Erasmus and the humanism movement than he was particularly in Luther. He was known as John the Simple. I don't know if that relates to his intelligence or maybe his taste, but this is quite a contrast to what his father was known as. So his father, who was John II, was known as the baby maker, and this was because before he got married, so before he was 31, he had fathered 63 illegitimate children. And I assume he didn't have to pay for all of them, because my goodness, he would have been bankrupt, wouldn't he? Anne's mother was called Maria, so she was the Duchess Maria. And she was heiress of the area of Jülich and of Berg, but she was happy for her husband to rule in her name. So he's got a decent area there that he has, that he's in control of. So he's got this area which is a duchy, so that's the word for the area which is owned by a duke or a duchess. We don't know a huge amount about her. We'll talk about her a little bit more when I talk about Anne of Cleves' education. However, we know that she was a intelligent and influential woman around her children. Now, Maria had 4 children, so Anne had 3 siblings. The eldest child was Sibylla. She was born in 1512. She was known for her beauty, and she had a very advantageous match with a man who we're going to come to later on, called John Frederick. He would be the future Elector of Saxony. Then Anne came second in 1515. Her brother William came in 1516, and then her youngest sister Amelia in 1517. Now, Amelia would remain unmarried. The Duchy of Jülich Cleves, or Cleaver as it would have been known, was a small area, but it was wealthy, and it was very well positioned because it was sort of a route between parts of the Low Countries where the powerful Habsburg families were to move through to Italy. It was both sort of a financially good position and politically. As well as being reasonably wealthy, it also maintained its own army and its own kind of diplomacy. While parts of it were part of the Holy Roman Empire, it did sort of retain its independence. Anne was born in 1515, as I said. It's believed to be on the 22nd of September, although June and July has been proposed as potential months. If she was born in September, let's just take a second to think about the fact that makes her only maybe 5 months older than the Princess Mary. So only 5 months older than the daughter of the man she was going to marry. She was born and grew up at the Palace of Dusseldorf in Germany. Now, hardly any of that palace remains. There is a single tower still remaining. Anne would have been known as Anna or maybe Anna, and to give her full name, it would have been Anna von Jülich Cleverberg. So apologies for my pronunciation. I'll stick with Anne of Cleves so I don't embarrass myself further. The Duchess Maria, her mother, was in charge of her upbringing and education. And what's really interesting here, if we want a little contrast, is that Anne never left her mother or younger sister. So she was 24 when she eventually left to marry Henry. But in all those 24 years, she was with her mother. She didn't go off to stay with another noble family like what often happened in England. She didn't go off to join the French courts like happened with Anne Boleyn. She stayed with her mother. So they were obviously very close and physically close too. There was a comment made that she was never, she was always at her mother's elbow. Her mother, as I said, was in charge of her education. But it was a very different education to what girls were receiving in England and parts of Europe. Humanism movement in England was suggesting that aristocratic women should be taught a similar curriculum to the boys. They should be getting that humanist education. However, that wasn't the same view in this part of Germany particularly. So while she could read and write, she only spoke German. She wasn't encouraged to learn other languages, and she also wasn't encouraged to learn to sing or dance or play instruments. That wasn't the done thing for well-bred ladies at this time in that area of Germany, like it was in other parts of Europe. Although she learnt to cook and she learnt to do needlework. She was very keen on needlework, much like Jane Seymour had been. And in terms of the court atmosphere was very different to other European courts and certainly to the English court. There's one report that says at 9 p.m. her mother would have all the wine at court put away, that sort of any meetings needed to be disbanded, no more chatting and laughing. And it's I don't know if she quite sent everyone off to bed, but it was a bit lights out, no more nonsense. When you compare that to when Anne Boleyn went to France with Henry, I think it was that occasion anyway, and they were all served dinner at midnight. It's very different. Frivolity versus quite a pious and maybe a more gentle way of life even. Also, hunting and hawking was frowned upon for well-bred women, and that's a contrast again to the English court. Women enjoyed hunting as well. We know Anne Boleyn enjoyed hunting. So all this is to say, she was very ill-equipped to be at an English court, to be an English queen. I'm sure had she been betrothed to Henry, from age 5, as so often happens with these things, maybe she would have had an English tutor and sort of been schooled in different ways and how to behave. But that had never been on the cards for her. It was assumed she would have an advantageous match, but I don't think anyone could have quite predicted she would have ended up, albeit briefly, as the Queen of England. Particularly as she was already engaged to somebody else, which we'll discuss in the next video. So in the next video, we're going to talk about her 2 engagements. The first one to Francis, heir of Lorraine, and Henry VIII, of course. Don't forget, you can find me in these places, and you would make my day if you would subscribe to my channel. I'll see you soon for more Anne of Cleves.